Hello, world. You're listening to Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, where we're always creeping it real. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner.
Welcome all to my paranormal closet, where the stories and magic take place. My guest today got into fringe topics at an early age. When he was a kid, he watched Unsolved Mysteries and The X-Files. A near-death experience in 2008 changed his life. Shortly after, he got into conspiracies and alternative ancient history. He was a sponge, soaking up knowledge, and started his own journey with his podcast, What If They're Wrong?, in hopes of answering some of life's mysteries. Join me in welcoming Jeremiah Dorph. Welcome, Jeremiah.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
I'm so glad I finally got to arrange it with you. We've done some different things together over the past, but I've not had you on my show yet, so I'm very excited. You have quite the adventure every time you interview someone for your podcast. I'm sure you've learned a thing or two over the course of time. I know that I have. In fact, I've learned that there's a lot we don't know about, and I'm definitely open-minded and can think outside the box. But sometimes some of it is way out there. Simulation theory, for the listening audience, proposes that all of our existence is a simulated reality, such as in computer simulations. I have to admit, when I first heard about this hypothesis, I recalled a time when I was walking with my husband around the lake in my neighborhood, and I actually felt like something strange was going on in my head. It felt like I had a video running in my head and it was malfunctioning. I could actually see it behind my eyes in my vision, if that makes sense. I liken it to blips and static, and I thought to myself, what the heck is going on? And I was off balance and had to steady myself on my husband's arm, and it lasted the entire walk around the lake's perimeter. And that's all I thought about it at the time, until simulation theory came up in something I read later on, and I remember, and I actually, what are your thoughts on the subject?
It's very interesting, and I like covering it. And I did an episode on my podcast about the simulation theory, and I just like the concept, and I think it's actually plausible, because if you think how far technology has come from, okay, so I'm really into video games, so we went from Atari 30 years ago, and here we are with the new Xbox and PlayStation 5 and all that. And if you would go back in time with the PS5 or the Xbox and show someone that was playing Atari, they wouldn't know what to think. They would be like, this is crazy. I don't believe this. So it's not that far of a reach to think that maybe some far advanced civilization created a computer simulation, and we are that computer simulation. Or possible that maybe some, I don't know, divine entity, if you want to take it on the religious side, has this whole planet and everybody in it kind of programmed and is kind of playing it out. Or we're some type of reality show for extraterrestrials somewhere. Who knows? There's a lot of different theories when you get into it. It's not just one.
Have you had guests on your show that have spoken about similar occurrences such as mine?
Oh, yes. There's a lot of glitches in the Matrix is what we call it. And I'm in a Facebook group called Glitches in the Matrix. I always promote it because it's a fun group to be in. You hear a lot of different stories, and a lot of people talk about simulation theory and the Mandela effects and all that stuff, and about how things don't seem to add up. And there's certain things that happen and you're like, how's this possible unless it's some type of computer generated thing? And I think we have choices and stuff, kind of like if you play Sims on the computer, like your Sim character can go around and do whatever, but you ultimately have control over it until you can give it directions or whatever. So I think if the simulation theory is real, I think we're kind of like that, where we can go about doing whatever, but I think certain things are already programmed in that you're supposed to experience and you're supposed to do. I'm just saying that.
Birth and death, probably, and free will.
Yeah, because there's been times in my life that's like, there's no way that this wasn't destined to happen. Just the things that go into it. For instance, my wife that I have now, what are the chances that I meet someone on a phone game, start chatting with them? I live in Delaware at the time. She lives in North Carolina. We communicate and everything just falls in line and goes the way it's supposed to go. And here we are now married and stuff. And it's just, I don't know, it's so random. It's hard to think that it wouldn't be like programmed in there. I mean, if it's a simulation, I'm not saying that it is, but.
Sure, I get it. The what if. Yeah. I mean, I can see what you mean by like, you feel like everything's meant to happen for a reason. I mean, I'm 57 now, and I've sensed spirits since I was a kid. But I told you this story before. I shut myself down when I was around 12 because of premonitions that I was having. And Mom was always saying it was a dream or it was a nightmare. And when one of the really devastating premonitions I had actually came true, it kind of freaked me out. So I shut down. And it wasn't until I was 30 years old on the day my dad died that I had this reawakening moment. And it almost took his death and him coming to me, telling me that he was gone, that I actually was like, okay, this is a sign. Maybe I really need to figure out what it is that I got. And I mean, I know I'm not nearly as gifted as some of the people I have on my paranormal team, but I feel like I do learn a lot from them. But it took all this time, and at 30, for me to jump in and learn. And then my kids grew up and I wrote my first book. And I thought I was just going to keep on writing psychological thrillers because that was my thing. And just somewhere it happened that seed was planted to write the hauntings books, the true account hauntings. And that's something that I've always really liked. Whenever I go to visit a place, I go into the latest shop that's around that sells books, and I buy the recent book on true account hauntings for that area. And I thought, well, I know my neighborhood's haunted, so maybe I can write about that. And that's how it all started. But who would have known that it would have led to a whole new hobby and a whole new career of writing these books and having a paranormal team and having podcasts and da-da. I don't know what's next, but I'm willing and ready to go and find out. So, yeah, I feel like it was meant to happen like you. So it's kind of strange how things work.
I think it could be just divine intervention if you take it on the religious side. But if you like dive into the theory and you want to believe that we're in a simulation or whatever, things start to add up. Things like numerology and codes, and people find codes and they can add up numbers that predict events or things that happen. And people who are really into numerology, which I don't know a whole lot about it, so I can't really expound on it, but there's codes in things. There's a biblical code where there's like a code inside the Bible, and it basically like lays out things that are going to happen in the future. And they've really, people a lot smarter than me have done a lot of research into this. And there's numerology as far as like, I know a lot of people do it for like sports betting, and they can kind of figure out what teams are going to win based on numerology. And I'm sure there's a tons of other things that they can do. Well, if you can use numbers and stuff to figure out what is happening and what's going on, wouldn't it have to be coded? I mean, you would think.
You would think. Well, you had mentioned the numerology thing. I mean, I don't know much about it either, but we used to hang out with people years ago when I was first pregnant with my first daughter, and they were heavily into numerology. And he was telling me, if you could avoid having her on April 4th, avoid it, because you don't want her having 2 4s. And gosh darn it, that stuck in my mind, Jeremiah. And here I am in labor on April 3rd. And I'm like, this kid ain't coming out on the 4th if I can help it. And 1:45, I popped her. And let me tell you, it came with a shitload of problems that happened. I mean, she tore me, I was hemorrhaging, but I was having that kid out on the 3rd as opposed to the 4th. What would have happened if it was the 4th? I have no clue, but they told me to try and avoid it, and I did at every opportunity. And then I had a guest on my show not too long ago, Richard Clarkson, who's really into astrology, and he actually bases his life's decisions on his astrological chart. And he's told me a bunch of stuff about me that I've written down that I'm going to see how that pans out. But he, in particular, said to me that he grew up on a military base as a kid. And I mean, he's got a very interesting life. He's done very interesting things. He's been in the military, and his father was in the military. His grandfather was in the military. So they have a really wild history. But for him in particular, excuse me, he said he grew up on this military base and he would see all the time UFOs landing and taking off, landing and taking off. And he swears that he was experimented on as a kid by the government and that they messed with his DNA. And because of that, he has these abilities, not only so well researched and educated in the astrological field, because he actually worked for the government and used his astrological education to predict things for the government, which was really, really interesting. Like, they had these special departments, and that's what he did for the government. And he feels like because of it, he's actually been able to go into multi-dimensions and in and out of them at random. And now that he's older, he says it just happens and he doesn't even realize it. And it's kind of uncomfortable to him because he thinks he's where he's supposed to be and he realizes things are different. So that's what I meant when I was saying to you earlier about there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about, and it freaks me out because I like to be in my comfort zone. But when I hear all this other stuff, it's like, holy crap, you know?
Yeah, and I always tell people, like, question everything is the motto of the show. It's like, don't just take what someone says to heart. Make sure you get different sources and look into it further to make sure that it's what you believe or what you think. Because I think too many people get sucked down these rabbit holes and they only hear information from whatever source is pushing that agenda. And so they don't know the other side of it. So they come to an uninformed decision of what they are believing in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's almost like they don't have their own mind to figure it out. You know, that I'm like that too. I want to make my own decision. It's almost like when you're with a whole bunch of people and you invite somebody new in, and the couple of people have that newbie off in the corner and they're saying, don't talk to her. You know, she thinks who she is, you know, and you're like, huh, what's going on? I'm going to make that decision myself. You know, I'm not going to allow you to tell me not to like somebody. I'm going to find that out. If it's the hard way, I'm going to make my own decision about how I feel about that person, you know, kind of that way. I know it's a weird analogy, but it's one that just came into my mind when we were just talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing about the simulation theory, I might not have been the only person that thought about this, but I feel like I've only heard it for myself. So what if this is just a theory and just my brain working? What if the aliens are actually the coders or the tech support of the matrix that we're in and the computer simulation that we're in? What if they come here, fix glitches, fix issues, tamper with things to change the outcome? It's just a crazy theory, but it's something I think about. What if all these abductions are them just messing with human DNA to change us?
Or building maintenance, you know, coming in and trying to fix something that's going wrong. Well, you mentioned, we were talking about simulation theory, and then you mentioned Mandela effect, and they don't seem like they're too far off of each other. Like, this is an observed phenomenon in which a large portion of the population misremembers a significant event or shares a memory of an event that didn't actually occur or occurred very differently. Paranormal researcher by the name of Fiona Broom coined the term when she discovered a significant number of people at a conference she was attending in 2010 shared her memory that Nelson Mandela died in prison during the 1980s, when in fact, the former president of South Africa was released in 1990 and was very much alive at the time of the conference. I have to be perfectly honest with you. I have the same recollection of his death in the 80s. And I was surprised to read and hear that he was released in 1990 and went on to live another 23 years. And I'm thinking back, I remember it the other way. So what are your thoughts on this whole theory? Does it have something to do with multiple universes or time travel or somebody messing with it or what?
Yes, I do. I think so. It might take a little while, but I think Mandela. I think there are parallel dimensions, parallel universes, quote unquote. I call them dimensions, but universes, whatever. I think that there are multiple, and I think that there is ways to cross between, whether it's through psychedelics or I think they're messing around with portals at CERN. That's another conspiracy theory. I think what it could be, Mandela effect could be, is a lot of people take it to 2012, even though 2010 is when this lady thought, and it could have been happened before, but the most insurgents or the most popularity was around 2012 is when the Mandela effect started gaining ground, and a lot of people were starting to realize they don't remember things the way that they were, or things have changed. And other people, so you'll have like something where people will be like, no, that's not right, I remember it this way. And then other people
you could
are
end
like,
up getting that. Yeah. Well, I've heard of this before in things as simple as the spelling of Berenstain Bears. Jiffy Peanut Butter is the name I remember, not Jif. And I'm 100% certain of that. I didn't even know there was a question about Oscar Mayer until I researched it for this interview. For me, it's always been Mayer. And I've never heard it with an E in the jingle. But if some people have, I'm not going to call them crazy because of that having an open mind thing again. And then there's the Sex and the City thing as opposed to Sex and the City. I even remember having a conversation with my kid about that once. She said, you know, Mom, I always thought it was Sex in the City and not End the City. Well, which one is it? And I distinctly remember Freddie Mercury singing, "We are the champions of the world" at the end of the song, but there's a big division to this too. And I can go on and on and on.
there's so many. Mirror, mirror on the wall. And she never said that. She said magic mirror on the wall. And that trips a lot of people off.
Nope. It's been mirror, mirror on the wall for me.
Well,
wow.
Yeah. So what the theory is, and a lot of people subscribe to this, is they meaning the elites, the government, CERN, whatever you want to pin it to, found a way to mess with the multi-dimension thing with the Hadron Collider. And what happened was when they booted it up, they created like a warp, and it kind of merged two realities together or cross realities. And that would explain like why some people remember things differently while other people are like, no, it's always been this way, because you have people who have crossed over into different realities, and you have someone who comes from a reality where Jiffy Peanut Butter was and always is real, and then people who are still from whatever reality we're in now, and they always know Jif. So you kind of have that mergence, and the shift. A lot of people are like, well, no, you would realize the shift or whatever, but not necessarily. I mean, it could be such a subtle shift in realities that you wouldn't even notice. And then some people cling to the old reality, and then other people are into this reality already. And I mean, there's no way we'd ever know. There might be copies of us in another dimension or another universe, because they always say if there's multiple universes, there's probably multiple versions of yourself. So like me in another universe, I might be doing a podcast on, I don't know, puppies. or I might not even be doing podcasting. I might be a construction worker, or who knows what, a rock star. But and it would kind of explain the simulation thing too, in a way, is like you get merged. But I don't know. I'm not fully bought on the simulation theory, although it makes sense and I can see why people believe it. But I 110% believe that there's multiple dimensions. And I think that the Mandela effect is a real phenomenon. And I think that some people have crossed over from one reality to another, or one dimension to another. And that's why you have a good split of people who remember things one way and then another. And it's one thing, a lot of times it gets penned for like false realities, but how false reality could it be if millions of people are remembering the same thing?
Yeah.
Like Berenstain Bears is the biggest one, because everyone who is from the Mandela effect timeline or whatever is what I call it, are like, it's always been Berenstain Bears. There's no way it wasn't. And then you have a handful of people that are like, no, it's always been Berenstain or whatever. But yeah, it explains a lot if you dive into the like multiple dimensions and shifting of timelines and realities. And I don't buy the whole false memory narrative. There's just too many people who remember things a certain way for it to not be a thing.
Right. I had an interview with Mark Johnson, who's my boss on Paranormal UK Radio Network, not too long ago. And he had brought up the whole subject about other dimensions. And he mentioned something briefly about a conversation he had with a friend of his who insisted that she remembered him smoking. And he was like, I've never smoked before a day in my life. And they discussed the possibility of him smoking in another dimension. And, you know, when you talk to other people too, they've had their wife in this life, but she was somebody different in another dimension. And it's really crazy to even broaden your mind to think in something like that. I find it very interesting for sure, but it's really something that you have to think outside the box to get a grasp on it, a firm grasp.
And you can really take it down different rabbit holes too, is like, what is deja vu and where's deja vu come from? Why is it that I can go to a place and be like, I've been here before, but I know dang well I haven't been. So what is that? Is that past life? Is that another glitch in the matrix where I'm remembering another universe or timeline or whatever? It's just another phenomenon that is really weird, like the deja vu. And then other things like you run into people, and certain people you just instantly click with. It's almost like you've known them your whole life, even though you just met them. And then there's other people you run into and you instantly don't like them, and you don't know why. You don't really know them. And sometimes I don't like someone, I've never even talked to them before. It's like, why is that?
I just wrote Sussex County Hauntings Part 3. It just was released on Halloween. And that exact subject came up in reincarnation. There's a gentleman called Brian Stalin who specifically deals with past life regression, but he feels like we have a soul family that we go through our lives with. And one time they'll come up and be your brother, one time they'll come up and be your sister, they're your wife, and you kind of do these things with them throughout many lives. And he wants you to do the work. Like, he'll give you something to start with, but if you actually embrace it, the universe helps you to discover exactly who it is that you were, and that sort of thing. I haven't taken him up on extending it further for me because I was really involved in getting the book out, because I was writing about somebody who discovered who she was in a previous life when she did it with Brian Stalin and took that journey with him. And I might down the line. I'm pretty comfortable feeling that I've had past lives before, and I've kind of had an inclination of who I was at some points because I did have a past life regression. I do want to have another past life regression somewhere down the line. But I'm pretty comfortable with where I am now and how I feel about it. But it's really interesting stuff to think that you have these soul families that you've made this journey with before. And I've gone to many a psychic in my lifetime, and so my kids have done the same. And my older daughter has been told many a time that she was my mother in a previous life. And I can see that because sometimes she tries to mother me. So I can see how that was definitely a possibility, that she may have been my mom somewhere along the line.
Yeah, and through my near-death experience, I kind of have a feeling like we have chose to be here, and we've chose whatever existence we're in and what life we're doing. the more I think about it, the more I recall my experience, the more I think that we choose to be on Earth and I choose to be Jeremiah at this point in time. You choose to be Eleanor at this point in time. And what we have to do here is learn and grow spiritually. And I think that we have certain missions that we need to accomplish, because I remember calling out to these figures during my near death and saying, I'm not done on Earth. I have a mission to do. I have a mission to accomplish. And I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's got to be what this is. We're here, and we've probably been here multiple times before, trying to experience different things, different times, get better spiritually, I guess you could say, grow as a person. But I think that we are like, I don't know, lack of a better term, like light beings. We don't really have. Yeah.
That's when my dad died, the day that my dad died. I don't know if I told you this story when you interviewed me, but I was sitting in bumper to bumper traffic on the George Washington Bridge going into the city to try and be at his bedside because everybody had told me he's dying. And I remember like being really anxious and wanting to get there. And a drive-in movie screen opened up in front of me, and that's how he told me he was gone. And he was greeted by lighted beings. They were all his siblings and his parents and his best friend and everybody who had died before him, but they were lighted beings. And so, yeah, I agree with your assertion that that has a lot to do with. I did write about near-death experiences in my Warren County Hauntings book, and those stories are amazing and so poignant, and left those people with something that changed their lives forever. So when you said it changed your life forever, I totally get it. And just interviewing them and hearing what happened to them and how it changed them was incredible. I do agree that we hear a lot and that it's our choice to do it. And I feel like that whole term, you're an old soul, has some kind of basis to it, that there are people that are older souls than others because they've been here more often. And I do feel that we can choose to stop too. Like I think this might be my last journey. I think that I don't want to go again kind of thing. So I do feel that that's a choice that we get to make. Very interesting though.
Yeah. And it also, I think it explains what I was saying earlier about how I could not like someone and not even know them, or run into someone and feel like I've known them for eternity, but I just met them. And maybe that's the whole cycle, is like we've run into these people before in past experiences and past lives and past times. And maybe that person that I instantly don't like is someone who did me wrong in my previous existence.
Sure. I remember telling somebody this too at one point. I used to work in Manhattan, and you walk out at lunch and you are surrounded by thousands of people. And I remember so many times walking and going, I know that person. Where do I know that person from? Like this would happen all the time. I would see random people and think, oh, I know that person from somewhere. And I feel like that was something. How did I feel that I knew that person? And there were occasions where we would meet eyes and I would see a recognition from them too. And they'd be probably walking away going, where the heck do I know her from? There's got to be something to that too.
Yeah. And then there's people that are, it's not me, but like there's other people that I've run into and encountered that someone will be like, oh, you look really familiar. And they're like, oh, I always get that. Well, maybe they were like famous in their past existence. So everyone knew them. It's just, yeah, it's something. And I never really got into this stuff before, but since my near-death experience and researching into this stuff and running my podcast, I'm starting to learn, like you said, there's a lot more out there than what we know.
Yeah. Yeah. I never thought much about it, but like you said, during the podcasting time and the interviewing, I'm finding out a lot of stuff I just never even thought about before. And I'm openly receptive to it, of course, because I want to learn more. I want to be able to judge for myself. But like I said, some of it's pretty way out there.
Yeah,
Trying to wrap myself around it.
Yeah, my podcast, I cover a wide range of topics, and I don't agree or believe in everything that's on my show, but I give people a platform to talk and share their experience, share their knowledge, and it's up to the listener to decide what they want to take from it, what they want to believe.
Sure.
If you want to believe, that's great, and if not, then that's fine too. But at least give it a shot. Give people a chance to explain their experiences, their research. Some people put a lot of time and effort and energy into their research, and I'm sure you know because you write books and stuff like that. It takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot to do podcasts, and
it does. It sure does. I've always been intrigued by stories of lost civilizations, and I don't mean simply the rise and fall of civilizations documented by historians. I'm talking about ones that have just suddenly disappeared off the face of the earth. And there are at least 6 I know of. Atlantis is the first one that comes to mind, but of course the existence of it is up for speculation to begin with. And then there's the Mayas, the Mycenaeans, the Indus, I think you say it. I think that's how it's Indus. I'm never sure how to pronounce it. And then the Clovis, the Mississippians, and those living on Easter Island. I know there are more, but I don't know the names of them. Of course, there are a number of theories as to what happened. And most explanations claim climate change as the first and foremost possibility. As a kid, I watched a show called In Search Of, narrated by Leonard Nimoy, who incidentally, the past life researcher named Brian Stalin that I spoke to you before, he believes that Leonard Nimoy was Abraham Lincoln in a previous life. But they had shows on the Bermuda Triangle where ships and planes vanished without a trace. And I was always intrigued and terrified by the notion that they were never located again and what happened. Have you ever heard of that show, the In Search Of show? And did you ever hear the Bermuda Triangle and all that stuff happening?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that show. I don't remember I'm sure I've watched it at some point. I just don't remember all the episodes and stuff. But yeah, I remember Leonard Nimoy, Spock,
Yes.
And also Bermuda Triangle. Yes, I know about that too. And there's a lot of theories around that as well. Electromagnetic interference. There's this theory that there's like pockets of gas or something underneath the seafloor, and every once in a while the seafloor will split or break and this gas will shoot up and swallow the planes or ships or whatever. So that's another theory. And then there's the paranormal theory. It's like something is going on there. There's some type of phenomenon that's going on. You also have a pilot who was flying from Bermuda to Florida, I think it was, like Miami. It's supposed to take like 3 hours to get there, and he ended up there in like, I think an hour or an hour and a half or something like that. And no one knew what the heck was going on or what was wrong. And this pilot later said that he was flying the plane and he saw a cloud, and the cloud started like spiraling, and he was going into the cloud. It looked like kind of like a storm cloud. And he said as soon as he went through the storm cloud, he was basically teleported closer to Miami than where he should have been. And that was a documented account. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't hear about that. I mean, I've heard of kind of going into like a portal of some sort. And then I used to speculate as to whether if these planes ended up in a portal and ended up in a totally different dimension, or like with passengers kind of lost the show sort of, but in a different reality.
I think that could be a possibility too. You have a lot of instances with planes, and just off the top of my head, you have like Amelia Earhart basically vanished off the planet. You had that MH370 flight in Malaysia a couple years ago, completely vanished. They don't know what the heck happened to it. I think there are instances, and I think there are places around the world that have heightened electromagnetic activity. And I think that's due to maybe opening portals. And these people just are happenstance and they mistakenly go through a portal or whatever. And who knows, that pilot that was flying from the Bahamas to Miami, maybe he was supposed to glitch out or go transport away, but maybe he was able to get through that teleport cloud or whatever. It's just a theory. I don't know, but
Sure.
but I think there are like anomalies, and then you have the whole theory of hollow Earth, and that there's earthly realms inside of our Earth, of the what we know as Earth. And what's his name? Admiral Byrd. He flew over the Antarctic, and supposedly he has journals and all kinds of stuff about finding that there was a portal to go inside of the Earth, and that he was in the Earth, and there was lush green stuff down
Journey
there.
to the center of the earth.
Yeah, like those movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Land of the Lost or whatever.
I was just thinking about that, how they were trying so hard to get back. I was just thinking about Land of the Lost. Yeah.
So there's definitely weird happenstances going on. You also have things in like Peru, and I love Peru. I've been there twice. I was just there recently. And you have Peru and Bolivia. You have these, they call them like sun gates, but basically they say that they're portals, and the native people there say that they're portals and stuff like that. So I think there is something to it. There's got to be something to it. And I think that I totally 100%, 100,000% believe that there was an advanced lost civilization that has been lost to time. We don't have record of it. No one knows what happened to them. We just get bits and pieces from archaeological finds. But I totally believe that there was other civilizations. And I think a lot of it is under the ocean, because I think a lot of it happened when we had the Ice Age and the water levels were a lot lower. So if you go off of places like Mumbai, India, they have like cities under the ocean, like on the ocean floor. So it's like, if they have that, what else could be around the world? Like where we can't really access or get to.
Can't just be that one place. I mean, look at the pyramids too. I can't imagine that people, and it could be like a whole bunch of people even, were able to build those. I think that they had to have help somehow, or maybe were a lot more advanced at one point in time to do that. I just can't see.
Yeah, a lot of people poke fun because they're like, oh, you just say aliens built the pyramid or whatever. But that's not what I'm saying. Some people might say that, but that's not what I'm saying. I think that humans have got their knowledge and technology from something, someone, some entity has shared knowledge, and we have, or the advanced civilization was before the one that I'm saying is lost to time. They had built the Great Pyramid of Giza, and basically after the Great Flood and all that stuff that you hear about in the Bible, and has been proven that it's happened and all that stuff, that the people that were left over tried to replicate what was already done. So that's why you see the Great Pyramid, super nice. I mean, obviously through time it's deteriorated a little bit, but the quality of it is way more than the pyramids that came after it. But if we take things how we view them, like time is linear and things get better as you go on, like you have a Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and now we're in the technology age or whatever. So if things are supposed to get better, why is the Great Pyramid of Giza, the oldest one, the best structurally? And then as you go, and the other pyramids that were built, they just like get worse and worse and worse. That wouldn't make sense from how we view things.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, why? And conspiracy theories seem to be the popular topic of day. The term is thrown out at every opportunity, in my opinion, just like you were just talking about how aliens, built the pyramids. The one that comes to mind first for me is the speculation that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone in shooting JFK. And I feel like, as a podcaster who interviews things that are strange and scary, when I interview people, I hear the most outrageous things. For one, I interviewed the man who grew up on the military base and I was telling you about his extraordinary abilities, which he actually used while working firsthand for the government. So when I hear such things as this, it gives me kind of pause. And when you talk about the pyramids and who built them and how the oldest ones, best one out of them all, you're going to get a lot of conspiracy theories out of it. People thinking, how did that come about? And different people are going to have their different viewpoints on it. I like to listen to them all, though. I like a good story and take it for what it's worth. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of people who are into conspiracies that say that there's lizard people that are running the world governments and powers and stuff like that. And they say that there's shapeshifters and that a lot of your politicians and superstars and stuff like that are these draconian lizard people or whatever. I personally don't believe it. It doesn't mean that it's not true. I don't know, but there are a lot of different theories out there. It's just, like I said before, you have to question everything. You have to do your due diligence to kind of see both sides.
I haven't heard the whole draconian theory, but I've heard that people in authority are already dead. Like the queen didn't die when they said that she died, that she's already been dead, and that the Biden isn't really Biden, and that Kamala is not really Kamala. And there was a whole slew of them, but those are the ones that come to my mind right now, that they're replaced. They're replacements. They're people that were put there to, that look like them, to pretend like they are who they are because they're already gone, which is really strange too, but I've heard that story.
Now, I do believe that there is like a shadow government or like an elite that is behind the government. So like, I don't think the president and his cabinet really have all the power and all the say so. I think there is darker entities behind that. Call it demonic, call it shadow government, whatever you want to put a label on it. But I do believe that there is a lot of weird stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't see and we probably will never see. But I think a lot of things are starting to come to the light. And I think that is already like prophesied and stuff. But you had the whole Epstein Island thing and the whole...
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so interesting. I do feel like there's something to that we need to find out more about. I really do feel like when President Trump was in office, there was a point where there was a truck of children discovered in Georgia that were being taken. They were abducted. And there was one child that had been abducted a week or two before. And I'm talking young children, like 4 and 5 years old. And that only was on the news for the briefest amount of time that they discovered this. And he wanted to get to the bottom of where these children were going. And they were so glad that they found this one child that was taken the week or two before, and then you didn't hear anything about it. But you hear all of this stuff about Epstein and stuff going on with kids, and I just feel like there's something that we just don't know about, and I don't know what it is, but I do feel like I'm hoping that it comes into the forefront and out into the open, because I just feel like Epstein is a key to a lot of it too, I think.
Yeah, because I think that there is... And I don't know how deep you want to go on the show, but I think there is...
Deep if you want to go.
I think there is like a underground child sex trafficking thing going on. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of your like famous actors, movie stars, government officials are into pedophilia. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I think that you're starting to see a lot more of that coming to surface. And you had the whole Me Too movement going around. Sometimes that could get taken a little too far, but a lot of that stuff that was going on in secret is now starting to come to light, and people are speaking out about it more. But you also see people basically get silenced or suicided. And for people listening, I'm holding up the quote marks, suicide. So like Epstein, I don't believe that he committed suicide. I think he got taken out because he knew too much and was going to expose whatever.
So what do you
I
think's going
think
to happen with his girlfriend? Like, what's going on with her?
I think she's just the scapegoat. I think they know that she's not going to spill the beans. So I think they kind of gave her a deal or whatever.
Scared
And
her into shutting up?
yeah, basically. And who's to say? They could say that they're putting her in like a holding cell or whatever, but who really knows? Who tracks that stuff? Maybe she's on a beach in Tahiti or something. We don't know. But yeah, I think there's a lot involved there. There's a reason why we haven't really seen the flight logs to Epstein Island. I think there's a reason why no one really gets brought to justice for this stuff.
We came so close to finding out with the prince and the queen. We came so close because he put his foot in his mouth a couple of times, and he was supposedly on Epstein's Island, and this stuff that was coming out, and it was like, come on, let's go, spit it out already, do something about it. And I think the queen was really pissed off at him and had to shut things up for a while, but I think she even took away some authority from him, even if I remember correctly. So I feel like, oh wow, we came so close to finding out something, and then it was shut down. It was like, you know.
Yeah, it's just it's weird, and the more you look into it, the more you're like, dang, like all my childhood's ruined because all these actors and stuff that I like idolized are like,
and I don't even want to watch them anymore. I when they're on, I'm like, I don't turn that off. I don't want to even see that person. I can't watch it because it just, all I see is what I've heard, and
it's
I'm
like,
so disgusted because it's so deep rooted and it's evil and it's yeah.
it's like some things are not, you can't explain them other than the obvious.
Yes.
Tom Hanks, when the Epstein Island thing was going off and the Jocelyn Maxwell case was going off, he went to live in Greece because Greece does not have the pedophile laws that we have, supposedly, from what I hear. So he was kind of like fleeing the scene, so to speak.
Wow, just in case, to cover his butt.
Yeah, now that things have like died down, now look, he's back. He's in that new Pinocchio movie.
Yeah, and do you notice that he's in all these movies and they have him on TV constantly? His movies are on TV constantly. I feel like every time I turn a channel, it's another Tom Hanks movie, and I'm like, I'm not watching it. Not watching it. And he's just one of them. There's a bunch of other ones. I'm just like, nope, not watching it.
Yeah, that's just one example, but
yeah. It feels like they bought their way in, and they get to, have free reign, and they're shoved underneath our noses because this is what's owed to them. It really is disgusting, but
yeah, the more you look into it, the more you're just like, I didn't really want to know this.
Yeah. And we were just saying that too. My husband and my kids and I were like, oh, it feels like every time it's another one that I have to just scratch off my list as somebody that I used to love to watch, and they're pieces of what.
Yeah, like I like some of R. Kelly's stuff, and now I feel like I can't even listen to it because of all the stuff that happened with him. I'm like, dang it, you just ruined like all these good songs because I have to like listen to them in secret now, and I still feel bad.
Oh my gosh. Well, I could go on talking for hours, but we're running near the end of our time. So I do want you to tell my listeners about how they can find you and your podcast.
Yeah, so the podcast is What If They're Wrong? My name's Jeremiah. I'm the host and producer and everything. But there's a lot more information, a lot more content on my show. So I know we can only scratch the surface in an hour. So definitely go check it out. It's on all podcast platforms. You can also go to www.whatifpod.com. Basically, that has all the episodes, pictures of the people I've interviewed, a little bit of bio about them, and then my contact page if you want to get a hold of me. For whatever reason, I respond to all my messages, so don't be afraid to reach out if you want to. And What If They're Wrong? You can find it everywhere. Instagram is my biggest social media use, so you can find me What If They're Wrong on Instagram. On there, I don't really get into like conspiracies and stuff. I just post funny memes that are like centered around ghosts or Bigfoot or aliens, just something entertaining. And then I leave the show for like the serious stuff.
How long have you had the podcast now?
I'm coming up on a year. On the 17th will be a year.
Oh, okay. Oh, congratulations. I thought it was longer than that. Okay.
Yeah, I've been 1 year, about a week, and then I'm about 50 episodes now, plus some bonus ones, and still going. I still got a lot of good episodes coming out. I'm going to be interviewing Dockside Media again, talking about their documentary about aliens and the intelligence agencies. I guess they interviewed people in the government and stuff and talked about aliens and UFOs, and so it should be good. And then I've got stuff coming out for what did I talk about with the lady? Just a bunch of good content. I don't want to take too much time, but yeah, every show is a different take, and it's like a grab bag. So one time you'll get aliens, next time you'll get Bigfoot, next time you'll get ghost hunting. So just a little bit of something for everyone.
A mix, a happy mix. Yeah. Well, for those of the people that are tuning in, we did a paranormal panel on Jeremiah's show for Halloween that released on Halloween, and there were 6 of us on the show and just talked about everything ghostly. And our thoughts was kind of like an open forum. I felt it went. It was really good how it went, and there was a variety of people there, from podcasters to paranormal investigators to authors, and it was a happy mix with great conversation. I really enjoyed that show, and thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, that was fun. I want to do it again. Yeah. It's fun to bounce ideas off of different people and get different takes and different experiences and different experts that share a common hobby, I guess you call it, or lifestyle.
Sure.
So it was fun, yeah.
I forgot to ask you if you actually paranormal investigate yourself. Have you gone on paranormal investigations at all, or is it just something that you like to talk about, or that sort of thing?
I do not, because I'm a scaredy cat. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of afraid of the dark. If I can't see or whatever, I kind of start freaking out, get like panic attack. So no, I'll leave that for the ghost hunters and the experts in that field. But I do like hearing the stories. I do like talking with people who do that. And I do want to go Bigfoot hunting one time, go out to the woods and kind of see if I can hear a Bigfoot or come across a Bigfoot. I think that would be a lot of fun. My main thing is aliens and UFO abductions. I get really into the whole abduction phenomenon, and I read countless books on it. I've interviewed people. I've interviewed abductees. So like that's like my main go-to. That's
what you really like. Listen, yeah. Well, I really enjoyed our conversations for today, and I hope you'll come back on because you do so much and talk to so many people. I'm sure we would have endless things to talk about. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you'll come back again.
Yeah, next time we can dive into the whole UFO abduction phenomenon, because that's my bread and butter.
Great. All right. Sounds good. I would like that. Okay, Jeremiah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you all liked listening to this week's episode of Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World, and you're into all things paranormal, check out my other show, Eleanor Wagner's Creepin' It Real podcast, out of the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, streamed directly through my Eleanor Wagner YouTube channel, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. I would also like to take a moment now to report that my latest book has been released. Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, Part 3, is now available at authoreleanorwagner.com. This chilling edition presents more first-hand accounts from residents and my own paranormal team of ghosts and hauntings across Sussex County. And there are special chapters dedicated to true account stories on reincarnation, Bigfoot, visits from deceased loved ones, and ghost stories from around other parts of the country. Everybody loves a good ghost story, but there's nothing better than a true ghost story. And stay a few minutes longer and listen as our soundtrack music performed by Silent Crafters' Stranger Part 2 off the Stranger Part 2 album takes us out. Good night, everybody.
Ghostly listeners, you can follow me on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, where there are links to my books and video updates and photographs from all the investigations. Thank you, paranormal enthusiasts, for tuning in today. I hope you'll come back again. Remember to tap into your own gifts. Everyone has them. And in the meantime, make sure you're creeping it real.